Welcome to another edition of the Sports Lunatics. Who are the Sports Lunatics? Well, we're just two regular guys who love sports history. Hi, I'm Shawn Lavigne in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
And I'm Howie Mooney in Barrie, Ontario.
And you are watching or listening to the Sports Lunatics, whether on podcast, on your favorite platform, or on our Sports Lunatics YouTube channel. Howie, I'm fired up. The day we are taping, we are moments after the announcement of the 2024 Baseball Hall of Fame class. Three members joining Jim Leyland, who was elected earlier to the Hall of Fame for 2024. The induction ceremony, of course, happening at Cooperstown, New York in the summer. So three members, they had to get 75% of the votes. And it was quite fascinating today, Howie. They had as many as 7 players potentially going into the Hall of Fame based on voting tracking they were doing from various media members who released their ballots early. But only 3 are going to Cooperstown. They are Adrian Beltre, of course, had 3,166 hits, played 21 seasons, one of the best third basemen that have ever played. Joe Mauer, catcher slash first baseman, played all 15 years with the Minnesota Twins. A cool story with that. He actually went to the same high school as his former manager and another Hall of Famer, Paul Molitor, who we know very well in Canada, playing with the Blue Jays. And I was very happy with this one, Todd Helton, who joins Larry Walker as the only members of the Colorado Rockies to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
There could be a third, possibly with an asterisk, and Jim Leyland is going in. He managed the Rockies at one point.
That is true, but as a player, those are the only 2 players. But yes, Jim Leyland, of course, and we talked about him on an earlier episode of the Sports Lunatics. So when I let you know who those 3 were, what was your first impressions?
I was really happy that Joe Mauer got in, and I was a Joe Mauer fan. He, first of all, everything I've ever heard about Joe Mauer has been positive. I've never heard a bad thing about him. 6-time All-Star, MVP, batting champ, 3-time Gold Glove, a lifelong Minnesota Twin. And I've got a friend who lives in Minnesota. He goes to the Minnesota Twins fantasy camp every year. And I mean, everything that he's told me about Joe Mauer has just been just incredible. And it makes me happy when good people are rewarded in their pursuits.
Fascinating that as of today, he is one of the youngest members of the Baseball Hall of Fame at the age of 40. Sandy Koufax went in at the age of 36. But as of right now, and they talked about it on MLB Network, that Mauer and Willie Mays are the bookends of great history of baseball right now.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. There was a lot of cool stuff actually related to Joe Mauer, and I'm not going to lie, Howie. I am of the belief that you say the name, and is he a Hall of Famer? When I was reading out the names today, I was like, Joe Mauer, Hall of Famer, and I was like, but was Joe Mauer really that great? And I know before you throw the darts and the sling the arrows and what have you my way, I was from the standpoint of, again, covering baseball and that I know he was a great hitter, but I also realized, and this is part of the stuff that drives me nuts about the Hall of Fame and the voting, and everybody can look at a different player through different lenses, right? So Joe Mauer was a catcher, but he was also a first baseman and played many games at first base. And statistically, if you go by the catching statistics for catchers, yes, he's way up there, average. I think he's the 3rd or 4th best average of all time amongst catchers in terms of playing 900 games. And of course, he won the batting title a couple of times. He also won an MVP award. So, and I don't take that away from Joe Mauer, but I laugh. When I was thinking first ballot Hall of Famer, I'm like, Joe Mauer. That just doesn't sound right. And I know a lot of people, and I am not a baseball purist by any stretch, would say I'm nuts. But I just find sometimes, and this is what they did all day today, and analyzing certain players and what have you. If they are this position, then they should be in the Hall of Fame. But if they were that position, they shouldn't be. It makes no sense to me. Jose Batista, and I'm not being a Blue Jay apologist or what have you. 1.6%, he's off the ballot already. Based on his voting totals today. Billy Wagner missed by 5 votes, missed the Hall of Fame, by the way. And next year is his last year. He should get in. I'm curious what you feel sometimes about the Hall of Fame voting and just how it's done.
I'm old now, Shawn, so I've experienced a lot of this, and really, at this point in my life, I'm not surprised by anything that goes on. I mean, if they had elected Alex Rodriguez and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds in today, I wouldn't have been surprised. It just uh, am I jumping for joy and doing handstands at this selection? Not really, but I'm happy that Joe Mauer got in. I look at him. He's just the 4th number 1 overall draft pick to get into the Hall of Fame. Harold Baines, Ken Griffey Jr., Chipper Jones, and now Joe Mauer. I found that to be interesting. That's what all I got to say. But I was really happy because not only was Joe Mauer really good for a really long time, but the fact that he played a long time as a catcher, mostly as a catcher. Yeah, I mean, their catchers' bodies get racked with just all kinds of stuff. And so you say, yeah, he played first base, but I mean, eventually Johnny Bench played first base too. I mean, I have no problem with Joe Mauer. I have no problem with Todd Helton. And I was really surprised looking at social media the last couple of days and seeing the arguments against Adrian Beltre and people saying it would disgrace the Hall if he's in. It would diminish the other people if he gets in. And I'm thinking like, uh, okay, are you in grade 3? Like, are you just looking at this the first time you're watching Hall of Fame voting or balloting? Because really, nobody should be surprised at anything that we see on the announcement day.
Well, you can say this about Beltre. He made his first All-Star game at 31. So it took him a while, but that also tells you about the consistency level. He got 3,166 hits. I believe he played the second most amount of baseball games at third base behind Brooks Robinson, who we talked about. Just what a legendary player he was. He was a model of consistency throughout his career, and that's what made him a Hall of Famer. Joe Mauer, it was a unique. It They even mentioned it today. It felt like an old school class because you had 2 out of the 3 players who played their entire careers in one spot, and that was Mauer, of course, in Minnesota, and Todd Helton in Colorado. And just in terms of the impact that they had on those franchises, and they were, held most of the franchise records, those 2 guys. So it did have that old school feel to it, which is great. For the traditionalists, they love that stuff. But every year I just shake my head about why is a certain guy, and I'm not going to lie to you, Howie. It's time to put in all the steroid guys. Just get them in. That
Well,
you
the other thing too,
you cannot tell the story of baseball without those guys.
and you can't tell the story of baseball without Pete Rose.
Right.
Pete Rose, I mean,
Put them all in.
yeah, put them in, put asterisks on their plaque if you want. But yeah, put them in. I have no problem. I have no problem with them not being in. I have no problem with them being in. Personally, I understand the arguments against putting them in, but at the same time, when you look at what they did, what baseball was in that window of time, they were the best of the best. I mean, other people took steroids too, but they didn't hit 700 and whatever home runs. It's
Well, and until the guys are bumped off the ballot, and then they go to this other committee, and that's how Jim Leland got into this year. Uh, there's talk of other guys that will likely not. Their 10 years will expire, and they'll have to go to this group, and then they could get in right away. I'm just saying, I look at the slate each year, and I just go, just put them in, just put them in. What like you can't erase baseball history like that, and I just don't understand it. I just don't.
Have a wing off to the side of just
Sure.
those guys.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I always get fired up about baseball Hall of Fame stuff. I don't get as fired up with Canton in the NFL or the Hockey Hall of Fame, although sometimes the Hockey Hall of Fame has their own issues. But for whatever reason, baseball, it does strike a chord. I think it is because it is held to this, it's like the holy grail of Hall of Fames, or at least they like to portray themselves as that.
I guess I mean, there is something special about Cooperstown. There's something special, not just about the museum and the Hall of Fame itself, but the whole town. I mean, you've been there, I've been there. I love Main Street in Cooperstown. I love walking up and down and seeing what the little shops have and all the little things. And you never know who you might see in one of the shops signing autographs. It could be a regular everyday player that played 40 years ago. It could be some superstar. You never know. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. It's a special, special place. And to me, well, Canton's very special as well. And I love the way that the way it's all laid out around the Hall of Fame in Canton as well. But to me, yeah, baseball is a special Hall of Fame, and it's a special. But I think the whole town is special, and I think that always it all comes in and blends together.
Just we're reacting to what happened tonight. Again, if you missed it, Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And yeah, it was, I would say Beltre was a slam dunk. And like I said, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, there were as many as 7 people they thought that could get in today, and 3 did.
That's the perfect way to end it.
Well, actually, the perfect way to end it is you're wearing a Twins jersey in honor of Joe Mauer.
Yes.
Love it. Is that a Kirby Puckett?
That is a Rod Carew.
Oh, very nice. Again, in the Hall of Fame for baseball. And that is the perfect way to end this edition, this bonus edition of the Sports Lunatics. Have a great sports day, everybody.